Greetings, Ken Woodward here. Welcome back to another episode of Curated Questions. Together, we engage inquisitive humans about how they use questions to navigate and make sense of our world. I'm a fellow traveler and pilgrim on this journey, and I'm glad you're here. Today's conversation is about a word, in both of its forms, a noun and a verb. Climber Alex Honnold had scaled Yosemite's 3,000-foot El Capitan without a rope, harness, or safety equipment. Last weekend, he did the same free solo climb of Taiwan's glass and steel skyscraper, Taipei 101, 1,667 feet in 91 minutes. He left the safety of the ground because he trusted something, not the building, not the weather, not the cameras. He trusted his own body, his own training, his own capacity to keep making micro decisions under stress. When I think about hope right now, I keep coming back to that image, not because I want to romanticize risk, but because it exposes something in me. If Alex's hope is rooted in his muscles and his skill, where is mine rooted? The honest answer? I'm not sure anymore. A mentor told me recently that my energy is completely different from what it was 6 weeks ago. He wasn't being unkind, he was being accurate. The person who walked 2,085 miles through every street in Washington, D.C., who launched this podcast, who built a practice around questions as a way of engaging the world, that person has a kind of fire that I'm struggling to access right now. I'm navigating my own sense of uncertainty, unsure of how to show up in the world professionally and democratically. I want you to know that when I talk about hope, feeling fragile, I'm not speaking from a safe distance. The world feels hard right now. Institutions expected to spring into action when democracy is threatened sit still with weapons at their feet. Masked federal agents act with impunity and rain unrestrained chaos and death on innocent citizens exercising rights the Constitution explicitly protects. The Supreme Court has granted broad immunity to executive power. The institution designed to check authoritarianism has enabled it. Decades-old trusts are shattered and allies recoil. I prefer easy, but easy is not available these days. What I keep striving for is a glimmer of hope. No, actually, I want more than a glimmer. I don't want to live in a world where a mere glimmer is the serving allocated for survival. I want an abundance that nourishes thriving. A glimmer is not sustainable if we're going to create a better world. Alex scaled that building without safety equipment because he had confidence in his strength and skills. America has strength and skills, but it has let the muscles that legitimately fight for democracy atrophy. I'm no exception. I want assurance that this season of trials will strengthen the populist muscles that protect the vulnerable and push back against authoritarianism. But I also know assurance is exactly what I can't have. So this episode isn't me teaching you about hope. It's me trying to find my way back to it out loud. Welcome to Curated Questions, and I am glad you're here. For a long time, I trusted the branch of American institutions, the branch of the courts, the branch of, we will never let this happen here. When I walked through every street in Washington, D.C. over nearly 2 years, engaging in over 1,300 conversations, something shifted. I watched my belief in American exceptionalism crack and eventually fall away. But I still believed the structures would hold, that when things got bad enough, the system would correct. That's what many of us were told. That's the story about hope we inherited. But we're watching the branch break in real time, not in some hypothetical future. Now, I watch on our screens in real time the silence, the ways we judge our white American ancestors for dragging their feet in slavery. Influencers in my feed tell me that we are not angry enough yet. Congress sits paralyzed. The document we were told was the ultimate anchor, the thing that would hold everything when leaders failed, is being treated as optional by the people sworn to uphold it. There's an image I've been carrying, a bird perched on a high branch. When the wind picks up, the bird is not at peace because it trusts the branch. The branch can break, the tree can fall, the world can change. The bird is at peace because it trusts its wings. So the question becomes, what does it mean to trust my wings when I'm not sure I've been training them? Because here's what I'm noticing in myself. I've been coasting on the illusion that someone else, some institution, some movement, some coalition would do the climbing for me. When protests erupted recently, I reposted. I nodded along, I felt things in my chest and my gut, and then I stayed home. It's not a confession for shame points. It's a confession because I want to name the gap between what I say I value and how I actually live. That gap is where my hope muscle is underused. A fellow writer, James Lockwood, asked a question recently that stopped me. What are you protecting with this opinion? When I tell myself there's nothing I can do or one more body won't matter, what am I protecting? Maybe my comfort. Maybe my sense that I've already done enough. Maybe the part of me that's exhausted from caring. I want to ask us the same question. When we tell ourselves, it'll all work out, or I just need to stay positive, what are we protecting with that opinion? When I couldn't shake the feeling that hope was failing me, I went looking for what it actually is. Not the greeting card version, but what's happening in the brain when someone maintains hope under pressure. There's a body of research, psychological, neuroscientific, philosophical, that tries to understand hope not as a vague feeling, but as a process in the mind and brain. One influential framework comes from psychologist C.R. Snyder. He suggests that hope is made of two core ingredients, agency and pathways. Agency is the sense that I can do something. Pathways are, here are some ways I might get there. In Snyder's view, a hopeful person isn't someone who just feels positive. They're someone who believes they can influence outcomes and can imagine multiple routes forward when obstacles appear. Hope is, in that sense, a cognitive skill set, a muscle. When I think about my own hope right now, I noticed where those two pieces are strong and where they're weak. Agency, the sense that I can do something. I have that. I've rebuilt careers, walked 2,000 miles, launched a podcast, but it is weak, atrophied. Now pathways, that's where I get really stuck. I can see what's wrong, and I struggle to see clear routes to something better. That's the muscle I'm trying to train. On the neuroscience side, researchers talk about the cognitive architecture of hope, how different brain systems work together when we're in a hopeful state. A few key players: dopamine systems. Dopamine gets a bad reputation as the, quote, addiction chemical, but at its core, it's about learning from rewards and anticipating possible good. When our brain gets a cue that something might turn out well, or that a new strategy might work, dopamine helps tag that as worth pursuing. The prefrontal cortex? This is the planning, evaluating, executive part of our brain behind the forehead. It helps imagine the future, hold multiple options in mind, weigh trade-offs, and make decisions. Prediction and error signals. The brain constantly predicts what will happen next and updates those predictions based on what actually happens. When the brain learns that a new action can change an outcome, when reality turns out better than predicted, it gets a burst of, maybe this is possible, and reshapes its models of the future. When we're in a hopeful mode, our brain is doing at least three things: generating images of a different future, evaluating possible paths to get there, and updating its sense of what is possible for me based on experience. Notice what's missing from that description? Certainty. Hope is not the same thing as certainty. Hope doesn't require a guarantee. Hope is about living in the tension between no guarantees and, but I can still move. If that's true, then questions become powerful, because questions are one of the primary ways we shift what our brain pays attention to, generate alternate futures and paths, and challenge old predictions that say, this is hopeless. So here's a question I'm sitting with. When I'm most afraid or discouraged, what is my brain rehearsing? What images, what headlines, what worst-case scenarios, what assumptions am I quietly treating as facts? When things are really falling apart, our brains tend to ruminate. They loop. We replay the same images, the same fears, the same outrage. We scroll the same feeds. We tell ourselves the same story about how we are stuck. When we're stuck in rumination, we're often in a kind of autopilot mode. Our limbic system, the emotional threat detection parts of the brain, is driving. Our prefrontal cortex is online enough to narrate what's happening, but it's not engaged enough to generate new options. Questions can act like a hand, gently reaching for the steering wheel. Not just any questions. Not, why am I like this? Not, what's wrong with people? Those usually just feed the loop. I'm talking about specific, practical questions that invite the prefrontal cortex back into the conversation. Questions like, what's one thing I can influence in the next 24 hours? Is the story I'm telling myself right now the only story that fits the facts? If my best friend were feeling what I'm feeling, what would I want them to remember? What small, tangible good is still possible here, even if the big outcome is out of my hands? When we ask questions like that, we're doing real neurological work. We are recruiting the parts of the brain that hold multiple possibilities and plan sequences of actions. We're nudging the dopamine system away from pure doom prediction towards maybe there's still a move I can make. I want to invite you to try this with something in your life right now. Think of a situation, political, relational, professional, where you feel stuck and a little bit hopeless. Maybe it's the direction of the country. Maybe it's your own sense of complicity or paralysis. Maybe it's something closer to home. Now, ask yourself gently, what is one thing, small, specific, that I can do in the next 24 hours that nudges this situation 1% towards the world I want to live in? Not 100%, not a revolution, just 1%. It might be sending an email. It might be texting someone who's already in the fight. It might be reading something by someone you've ignored because they make you uncomfortable. It might be donating or showing up or just pausing the doom scroll to breathe and to reset. If your brain responds with, nothing, there's nothing I can do, that's useful data. That's not the end of the conversation. That's the place where the hope muscle is weak, and muscles grow by being used. My brain has been responding that way a lot lately, which tells me something about where I need to focus. There's a danger with the way we talk about hope. We make it purely individual. My hope, my feelings, my spiritual state. But the crisis we're facing, authoritarianism, state violence, economic precarity, climate collapse, are not solo problems. They're collective. So if hope is a muscle, we need to think about it not just as my muscle, but as our muscle. This is something I'm missing or had just forgotten. I've been treating hope as something I need to find inside myself, when maybe what I need to do is be in rooms with people who are already doing the work. Questions can help here too. Whose hope have I outsourced to slogans instead of showing up? Which community near me is already doing the work I say I care about, and what would it look like to show up, even awkwardly? What's one small risk I'm willing to take this month that is in proportion to the risk others are living every day? Maybe that means joining a local organizing group instead of just liking their posts. Maybe it means financially supporting immigrant-led organizations. Maybe it means learning from Black or Indigenous leaders about what solidarity actually looks like instead of assuming I already know. The point isn't to glorify risk for its own sake. The point is to rebuild trust in our collective capacity to move toward what matters, even when the branch is shaking. So what I'm trying? I don't want hope as a primary strategy for living well. I don't want a mood. I don't want a feeling to chase or a slogan I repeat when things fall apart. I want muscles, agency, courage, solidarity, curiosity. I believe questions are one of the best ways we have to train these muscles, to reshape the stories our brains tell, to engage the parts of us that can imagine and act to move us closer to each other when everything is trying to pull us apart. So here's where I am. I'm not going to give you a list of 10 questions to answer. You already know the ones that matter for your life, the ones closest to your heart. But I'll share the questions I'm carrying right now. When did I last move towards something that mattered, even though I was afraid? And what would it take to do so again? What am I protecting when I tell myself there's nothing I can do? In a world where the old anchors have failed, what does it look like for me to become the kind of person and to help build the kind of community that others can reasonably place some of their hope in? And underneath all of them, the question I keep circling back to, what question am I avoiding that would change everything? I don't have answers to these yet. Not real ones. Not ones I'm living. But I'm going to keep asking. That, after all, is the practice. Days ago, poet Amanda Gorman posted a poem that uses words to make the abstract hope more concrete. For Alex Jeffrey Prietti, murdered by ICE, January 24, 2026, by Amanda Gorman. We wake with no words, just woe and wound. Our own country shooting us in the back is not just brutality, it's jarring betrayal, not enforcement, but execution. A message, love your people and you will die. Yet our greatest threat isn't the outsiders among us, but those among us who never look within. Fear not those without papers, but those without conscience. Know that to care intensively, united, is to carry both pain-dark horror for today and a profound, daring hope for tomorrow. We can feel we have nothing to give, and still beloved this world waiting, trembling to change. If we cannot find words, may we find the will. If we ever lose hope, may we never lose our humanity. The only undying thing is mercy, the courage to open ourselves like doors, hug our neighbor, and save one more bright, impossible life. For Alex Jeffrey Prietti, by Amanda Gorman. To the community, may your questions help you build the kind of hope that doesn't look away, but rather a robust hope demonstrated in action. Thank you for listening. As a reminder, the weekly Substack Curated Questions Dispatch is now live. You can sign up on either Substack or from the Curated Questions homepage. Additionally, the homepage includes a link to record your Right Now question, which may be included in an upcoming episode. Please take a moment to hit that subscribe button and leave a comment. it really does have an outsized impact in getting the show found. And that wraps up another episode. Drop in the comments section of your favorite podcast player the moments that resonated. To all the listeners, thank you for being here. Gratitude shout out to Beauty Pill for the show's music and to producer Ben Ford for the technical help. This episode was recorded on Piscataway land. Please engage with this episode in some manner. Download, follow, save, like, share, or comment about something that resonated. This action ensures we are engaging the questioning community. So until next time, keep questioning.